The following video contains main and side story spoilers all the way to Endwalker. We all know the main antagonists of the FF14 story. The likes of the Ascians, the Black Wolf guy spanned Baelsar in A Realm Reborn, Fandaniel, and of course, Xenos. But we have faced all manner of villains on our journey. Whether henchmen of the big bads or acting alone, they for the most part fly under the radar, unless brought to justice and shown in the main story. This video will be going over some of those lesser known antagonists in the story of FF14, and what fate had planned for them. I won't be covering the antagonists whose fate we already know, like one such villain who was cut down to size.
What?
Sorry. Let's begin.
Why, that which we have striven for all along, Commander. The salvation of Eorzea.
Yuyuhase Luluhase was a doomed folk Lalafell, and a former member of the Crystal Braves. He started his professional career as a member of the Brass Blades, performing such duties as serving as a guard for Uldaz Aetheryte. It was during this service that he fell into the pocket of Lolorito, which led him down his dark path. Yuyuhase was one of the first to be recruited to join the Crystal Braves. When the antagonistic elements of the Braves led a coup against the Scions and City-States, Yuyuhase was right there beside Ilbert and enjoyed every moment of it. We later see him in Heaven's Ward as one of those attempting to stop us from rescuing Raubahn, and send him packing in the aftermath. Our last encounter with him is on Baelsar's wall, as he watches and grins smugly as the Resistance were being massacred by Magitech. During Stormblood after the liberation of Alamigo, Raubahn informs us that Yuyuhase was captured, and was to be brought to trial to answer for his actions. His final fate isn't stated, but given his past crimes, he was either imprisoned or executed.
This is for Alamigo, for Eorzea.
Laurentius was a Hure Midlander and also a former member of the Crystal Braves. His professional career started as a member of the Wood Whalers. While he was loyal to them, he was a very corrupt individual, easily swayed by coin. When we first encounter him in the Black Shroud, he turns out to be an informant for the Garlean Empire. He sold them secrets and other pieces of information about Gridanian activities in the Black Shroud. He turns himself in for these crimes after we and others dispatch his new paymasters, and he was remorseful for what he did. We later see him again in Gridania, as one of many who volunteered to join the Crystal Braves, stating that he's turned over a new leaf. But it turns out, the leaf was rotten and just as stained on the other side. Laurentius stood beside Yuyuhase and Ilbert during their revolt against the Scions. The Braves were his chance to make amends for his past transgressions, and he threw it all away for the same selfish reasons. We encounter him later when going to rescue Raubahn, and send him fleeing before us. He was last seen on Baelsar's wall. Donned in Imperial disguise, he ordered Magitech Vanguard to massacre the Resistance soldiers, as part of Ilbert's ultimate plan. It should be noted he seemed very conflicted about giving the order, but did so nonetheless. Last mention of him was Raubahn, stating that he was captured alongside Yuyuhase and also faced trial. His fate isn't confirmed, but like Yuyuhase, he's assumed to be imprisoned in Alamigo, or was executed for his crimes. Ungust was a Hure Midlander and a minor antagonist of ours during A Realm Reborn. We first encounter him in Ul'dah, as he attempts to intimidate people for his own selfish ends. We later learn that he's from the Golden Bazaar, which suffered raids by the Amalja. They made demands of Ungust and others for information and crystals. Ungust did these things against his will, at first, but quickly grew to appreciate the coin it brought, more than he could have ever earned with an honest life. He later goes on to set up ambushes for the Amalja, to get a hold of captives for their primal Ifrit. This came to a head when he sets us up along with others to be taken to Ifrit to be tempered. His scheming came to an end then and there, when the Amalja had him tempered along with the other captives, for none could leave after seeing Ifrit. The brass blades and immortal flames took Ungust and the other tempered into custody after we defeated Ifrit. We learn a short time later that all the tempered from the incidents were to be put to death, for no cure to tempering was known at the time, and they presented a danger to everyone if kept alive. Ungust's sad tale of chasing coin ends here.
You're one of them! You've been in league with the Scions all along!
Lolorito is a Lalafell Dunes folk. He's a member of the Syndicate, a group consisting of Ul'dah's wealthiest and most powerful individuals. He also runs the East Aldenar Trading Company. He's a man that's always scheming and looking to earn more profits. He tends to try and cause unrest and embarrassment for others of his standing, in order to elevate his own position. What makes Lolorito our antagonist is that he was the one pulling the Crystal Brave strings from the get-go, which resulted in the rebellion of the organisation. However evil the act alone was, even he didn't want to take things too far. He learned that Teleji planned to have the Sultana assassinated, and thus orchestrated the switching of the poison meant for her and replaced it with a sleeping potion. This act was to eliminate both Teleji and Rauban as rivals, a plan which succeeded. Later he broke his ties with the Crystal Braves, as Ilbert assumed more control, which came to a head when they wanted to execute Rauban against his wishes. He told us the truth of this in Heavensward, and right after told us the Sultana's location, and offered the antidote to wake her. While he can be called an evil individual, he does most of his scheming for wealth and not to hurt others if he can help it. For his part in all of the aforementioned, and with regret in doing so, Lolorito surrendered Teleji's asset that he had seized, and half of his own wealth to the crown. After this, Lolorito became our neutral ally. He ensured his business allies in Kugane aided us with our mission however they could. We even rescued his niece from Kugane Castle. He further built trust with us when we worked with him and the Sultana to secure a salvaged royal treasure of Alamigo, which went to fund its rebuilding. We see him in Endwalker when Nanaimo puts him to task for securing the materials needed for the completion of the Ragnarok. He seems happy with the prospect, primarily because the Sultana gave him leave to make whatever profit he wished from it. Our last view of him is when he's standing together with the Sultana as the Ragnarok returns home. The name Lambs of Dalamud would have mostly escaped your notice, but to those who lived in Eorzea prior to the Calamity, this name was one to be wary of. The Lambs of Dalamud were a dark and secretive organisation. Not much was known about them. Some claimed they were formed 30 winters past. Others with knowledge formed a link between this cult and worshippers throughout history who looked to the twin moons of Aetheris for guidance and faith. And then there are theorists who will claim that the Lambs were created by the Garleans to sow the seeds of discourse in Eorzea after the Empire's defeat at the Battle of Silvertear Skies. Whatever their origins, the Lambs have a singular and twisted goal. The Lambs' doctrine teaches that the lesser moon Dalamud is a loyal hound to the moon Menfina the Lover, who is a deity of the 12, heralded as the keeper of the twin moons. The Lambs preach that the hound will one day return to the land and wreak havoc on the unfaithful. Those who have faith in them instead would be raised up and led to their rightful place amongst the stars. They have a method of ensuring this loyalty to their deities, by the self-sacrifice of their worshippers. This meant giving up any and all ties with their former lives and wealth, and pledging their allegiance to the Lambs and Hounds of Dalamud. They remained largely hidden and unknown to the peoples of Eorzea, until a meteor shower some years ago drew them from the shadows, and they thus started to preach in the public eye. Their numbers began to swell with them now being in the open, but they were largely ignored by the city-states, as being just another sect of 12 worshippers, of which there were a great many in one form or another. The lambs would show their truly dark colours when Dalamud began its descent due to Garlean machinations. They began to ritually sacrifice the innocent to the Hound. This is how we first encountered them, as they intended to offer us as one such sacrifice. We fight and overpower the cult, but they simply smiled and felt they had sacrificed more than enough to please the Hound. They felt the rites had been completed when we spilled their blood. Their numbers were in the thousands when Dalamud made landfall and the calamity occurred. They would almost cease to exist along with Dalamud in the aftermath of its fall. In the end, it was the realization that Dalamud was nothing more than a prison for the Elder Primal that caused the members to flee from the organisation, and what's left of it took its place in the shadows once more. We haven't heard much of the cult since then, with only a few encounters on our journey, such as their activities in summoning Voidsent in northern Thanalan, and when they occupied Andupor Keep to continue their worship of their god and usher his return. Even though we put a stop to them at every turn, we can't write off the Lambs of Dalamud just yet. Whispers still flow about their activities, which escalated when tales came to Eorzea from the Far East, of the worshipping of the Dusk Mother Nama, the goddess of the moon. Though this was years past, time will tell if the Lambs of Dalamud will make a return. Nhaza'a Jaab was a male Miqo'te keeper and gladiator. This sadistic and cruel individual has been a thorn in our side since a realm reborn, causing all manner of harm to the tribal allies we've been working with. He was kidnapping young Sahag and Clutchlings when we first encountered him, and we later learned he reported to a paymaster in Ul'dah. We sent him packing with a cobalt bomb explosion aboard his airship, but he repeatedly returned to cause more harm to our allies. We encounter him in Heavensward manipulating a dragon and causing much harm, yet again under another's employ. Our final encounter with him came in Stormblood, yet again being paid to this time gather mythical treasures from the tribes of the Far East. It doesn't even end with that, as he kidnaps the Ananta named Alpa and an Amazu named Gorai, all for the use of his new paymaster's needs as well as his own. Before he can kill Alpa, we and our allies are able to intercept and stop him, which causes the coward to flee yet again, before having his ship blow up and a shark drags him to the depths of the water. We don't get confirmation of his death, but his mask did show up in the aftermath, which hints at him being gone for good. But we have seen antagonists come back from worse, so who's to say that Nhaza'a won't return and cause further harm to our tribal allies and others. And these are some of the fates of our lesser known antagonists in the FF14 storyline. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, click that like button to show it. And consider subscribing if you haven't yet, as I have loads more videos to come. Lastly, and most importantly, leave your opinion on this topic in the comments, and let's get a discussion going. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.